Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie Lee and I'm a mixed media artist. Here on my channel I do time-lapse art videos, I do videos about art supplies and techniques, and I also do videos that talk about interesting things in art or art history, like art conspiracies, the paranormal, and other things of that nature. In today's video I'm not talking about any of those things, however, because we live in a weird world right now. Like, this is a crazy time to be living in. A lot of us are confused, worried, anxious, feeling really strange about world events at the moment. This video is being filmed mid-March 2020, and the coronavirus has taken over our lives, basically. There are a lot of people around the world that are dealing with situations that are scary and out of their control. There are people that are literally dying. And so this is not a joke. This is not something to be cavalier about, I don't think. But also, so many people are panicking because they have the wrong information, because they have information that somebody shared to somebody else, and it's taken on a life of its own, and it's just not accurate. And it's really hard to figure out what's accurate and what's not. I do encourage you that if you are looking at information that was shared by Aunt Marge on Facebook, who also shares the posts that say if you do not share this with 10 people, then 6 cats in Thailand are going to die. Perhaps she's not the best source of information, and I try as much as I can to look at reputable news sources and government sources, not only here but around the world, so that I can get the most accurate information, because I don't want to panic myself. I'm already an anxious person and I'm prone to depression, so world events right now are just really making that heightened, and I'm trying to stay rational because I do like facts and I do like having the correct source of information. I'm that person that always checks out the information I see with either the news source, the correct government source, Snopes.com, stuff like that. So I do try to keep myself as informed as possible, and I recommend that if you're looking for information, you try to do the same as well, just for your own peace of mind, knowing that you have the actual facts and not just scare tactics and misinformation. So why this video? What I'm talking about today is art important in times of crisis? Not only personally, but socially. When you're going through times of this coronavirus situation, when you're going through war times, when you're going through social unrest or upheaval, is art still important? Because across the country, not only are schools shutting down, my kids are out of school for the next 2 weeks, and I don't even know if they will be going back after the 2 weeks. There are productions and performances that are being canceled that people have worked so hard on, shows being canceled that people have prepared for, weddings being canceled, restaurants closing. This has never happened in, my life, and possibly a lot of you watching, this has never happened to you either. So this is a weird time, and for us that love art or are artists, I still sit here in my art room and do art. I'm also one of those people that I am an introvert anyway, so being at home was my comfortable place. It's where all my art stuff is. It's where I do my art. It's my happy place. So self-quarantine culture is not that different from my normal everyday life. Like, I got out and went to work, and I would go to, shop and that kind of stuff. We'd go out to eat, but I'm not the kind of person that spends all of my time out of the house, so this is not that weird for me. But for a lot of people, this is very confining, very strange, very angering. Is that a word? I don't think that's a word. It was very weird. They're not used to living like this. So honestly, I've been here in my house making art thinking, suddenly this is acceptable. My family made fun of me for, oh, you always want to be at home all the time. But now here I am doing my art and everybody's going, stay home, that's good. And I'm thinking, yay, this is something that I'm used to doing, and I always ask for more time to do art. But is art relevant right now? If you're doing art, you may have had that thought of, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? Is art still important? And for me personally, my own personal opinion is that it is incredibly important. And I will talk about why art is still important, in my opinion, for personal reasons, individual reasons, and also why art is important during times of crisis for social reasons and political reasons. Throughout history, art has been created no matter what has been going on in the world, whether people are sick, whether people are at war, whether countries are changing, whether people are going through trauma or disasters. Art has still been important in many ways, and I will get to explaining why I think that that is relevant to right now, and why, if you do art, I want to tell you, if it's important to you, keep doing it. You know, don't stop doing art because people are going through a rough time at the moment. I think this may be a time more than ever where doing art is really important to do, because you know, we're going through this virus situation, and it literally is a life or death situation for many people. We are being asked to stay home. We are being asked not to go out in large groups. The government has told us schools are, you know, being shut down to kind of stop the spread of it in schools, to people that work in schools, and to not go out and about. For a lot of people, that's very hard. Number one, we're worried financially about our jobs and our sources of income. How are we going to make money if we cannot go out and work? Teachers, are they going to be paid? Are they going to be able to complete the year? Are, you know, people that work in restaurants, are they going to be able to be paid? What are they going to do? How are they going to pay their bills? All of these feelings of discomfort and anxiety and fear and worry and stress and panic and pain, all of that stuff has led to many people doing art. That's the basis of a lot of art movements, a lot of art, great artworks, is taking all of those feelings that you don't know what to do with and doing art with them, instead of drinking, doing drugs, gambling, you know, all of those things that are coping mechanisms. What's next? What do I do? I feel so uncomfortable. I feel so angry about this. I feel so scared. And that is a great way to create. I'm a visual artist. I paint, but also for musicians, for people who perform, for people who put out content. People in quarantine need stuff to do. They need writers. They need to read good books. They need to read good information. They need to watch things like movies and shows and videos that, you know, they have the time to watch now, and they're looking for things to do. For a lot of people that have been through bad situations, that have been through traumatic things, that have been through oppression and racism and sexism and all of that kind of stuff, art is a way to get the feelings out that they may not have otherwise been able to deal with those feelings. When they are not sure what to do, or when they just don't want to acknowledge those feelings, art can help get all of that out and help them deal with things that are hard to deal with. I also think that art can help other people understand what you have been through or what you're going through. When you create a painting, a drawing, a video, a song that talks about your experience going through something, and somebody else sees it or listens to it, then it helps them understand what you've been through. And if they're feeling the same way, if they're going through similar things, it can help them feel like you understand, or like they're not alone. And what's more important than that, especially for people that are going through traumatic times where they feel like they're, you know, the one that's dealing with this, and they don't understand that other people have also dealt with that, it can make them feel so much less alone. And art is a way to do that. Writing about it, painting about it, drawing about it, talking about it in a video. And also, if you make videos, if you make content, if you make music and you put it out there now, people are looking for those types of things. They want to feel connected. They're probably feeling lonely, isolated, frustrated, cooped up, cabin fever to the max. And to know that there's people out there that are feeling the way they're feeling, or are talking about things that are important to them, or are doing art videos that a lot of times if you're making an art video where it's a time-lapse video or it's you creating something and you film it and people watch it, it's relaxing. It helps them relieve their anxiety. It helps them, be able to stress less and let their brain kind of just stop the worry, anxiety cycle that they're in. When I think back to when I first started doing mixed media art, I got back into it because I had been separated and then divorced, and I had a lot of trouble dealing with all of that. I felt hopeless, I felt alone, I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't know what was coming next because I didn't know what was coming next. I started doing mixed media art as a way to help me through that, and it actually helped me with, a lot of my feelings around that time. And that's just one example. And there's so many more people out there that work through their issues with their art, and when you put it out there in the world, it allows people to see that and feel like they are connected to you because of that. And in a time when we're feeling disconnected from each other, that can be a really, really big deal. I also was thinking about, socially and in the world, why is art important when there's a crisis going on? And, I started kind of looking around for information, and in history, people have used art to change societies, to start revolutions, to deal with racism, to deal with sexism, to deal with oppression, to deal with diseases. All of that has come from people putting their art out in the world. Throughout history, there are so many examples of art in times of crisis that have helped people through situations or social issues or that type of thing. Even in the worst, the lowest, the most awful, horrible things you can imagine, art has helped people cope. For example, in the German concentration camps during World War II, art and music created by Jewish children and adults was one way that they could process what was happening to them and, just kind of get away from what was going on for just a little bit. I'm probably going to butcher this name, in the Terezin ghetto. I saw a picture from a child who survived, but this particular picture was shared through the Atlantic Center for Arts, and it was a notice for art and healing in times of crisis, which was a program that they did where they talked about things like this. And I found this quote when I was looking for information that came from the globeandmail.com. The article was called partially Balm in Times of Crisis, and the quote is this: "Humans rely on artistic representations to make sense of life's constant changes. This is especially true in challenging times." And just knowing that, people were creating art in concentration camps during World War II, that they needed that outlet even in those dark times. When we had the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 in New York, the city health commissioner actually worked hard to keep theaters and cinemas open, and even created a basically temporary schedule to help avoid the passing of the flu to people. Didn't want to close the theaters and cinemas completely because he really wanted people to have that chance to stop ruminating on the subject of this flu, which was so devastating to so many people. And, during this time, museums are closing, theme parks are closing, performances are shut down. So, a lot of those avenues that people use as an outlet and that a lot of artists are actually relying on as their livelihood. For example, South by Southwest, which is a huge music festival, last year it generated $355.9 million. That has been either canceled or postponed. I'm pretty sure it was canceled. And what a huge loss for all of the people involved in putting on that event, and for the artists, who are used to performing at those types of things. But you know, there are things we can do. We can live stream performances, we can live stream music and art, we can go look at virtual museum exhibits. Just because the museum itself is closed doesn't mean you can't go to their website and take a virtual tour, or, you know, look up information online from different museums so you can see or hear what they would normally show you if you were at the museum. Many of the different art movements throughout history have had their basis in social change, political change, idea or thought changes. For example, Romanticism was a revolt against the Age of Enlightenment and the social and political norms of that age. Artists wanted to change the way people were living, and they did that through art. Also religious art. There's many religious pieces throughout history that were done to make a statement about religion, about people feeling oppressed, about people feeling like the, you know, ideas or the thoughts that were being put forward were not fair, were not good. And so they created art to help other people understand where they were coming from. Art during war times. Anytime that there's been war, there's also been art. Before there was photography, art depicted battle scenes. It depicted leaders of the war so that people could see who they were and what was going on. And then when photography was invented, in fact, during the Civil War was the very first time the war was actually photographed. And, you know, now there's a record of what went on because photography is able to tell that story. I'd like to mention that throughout this video you might hear snoring, and I apologize, but I cannot film a video without my dog just being here, and she snores like a chainsaw. I don't know if you can see her from here, but she's in the chair over there. After World War I, which was horrible for so many people, people wanted to use art as an escape. So modernism was really big right after World War I and the Industrial Revolution, and it became popular because people felt like the statement these artists were making spoke to them in a way that, you know, helped them cope with what had happened during the war. A German artist who is named, again, I'm sorry, Kath Kollwitz. She was an artist who depicted the tragedy of war through her art. There is a sculpture of a mother with her dying child, which obviously is a very sad, very emotional piece of art, but it also helped so many people who felt, you know, the pain of that mother because they had been through the exact same thing. Dadaism was also a political movement after World War I, and a lot of art came out of the Dada movement. This was people using everyday objects for artistic purposes. Some other times when art has been instrumental in making change or making a statement: social realism, which was an art movement depicting social and racial injustice and economic hardship, you know, photos and statues and paintings and other things representing the hardships that people were going through. Harlem Renaissance, 1924 to 1929, dealt with slavery, black identity, racism, and this was black performers and artists who were creating at the time to tell their story so that other people could see what they had been through. The Great Depression, photography was a great way at that time to get the idea across to people. Sorry, that's my dog. Photography during the Great Depression allowed people to see what other people were going, the suffering that they were enduring, and to empathize with them. Mexican muralism was a big movement because it talked about the post-Mexican Revolution time and helped, hopefully what the artist intended was to bring the Mexican people together, and they would see this mural art and they would feel united with their country because of all the stuff they'd been through, and they wanted to kind of unify the people again, and art helped them do that. Things like the AIDS memorial quilt, which was created in the 1990s and is basically a traveling art exhibit that, you know, you can have in your part of the country so people can go see it and it memorializes the people who have passed on because of AIDS. Protest art is another thing that helps people understand why people feel the way they feel, why they do what they do. And, you know, when big things happen in the world and people create art that explains why they're feeling oppressed, why they're feeling things need to change, it helps other people either agree or disagree with what they're doing and why they're thinking that way. So that's my thoughts on if art is important or not important in times of crisis. Obviously, my answer is that it is important. It's important for artists as individuals to help them cope with things that make them stressed, frustrated, anxious when they're dealing with times of trauma, when they're dealing with financial problems, when they're dealing with, a global pandemic that we've never seen the likes of in our time. Art can help us cope and get through. If you have a family member, a friend who is an artist, encourage them to create. Tell them that what they're doing is important, because even if it only helps them, it helps them. If they film it, if they share it, if they create, and then later on, they're able to sell it or get it out into the world, that helps other people. And on a societal level, art has been the basis of so many movements, of so many upheavals, of so many types of change throughout the world for the better. And if we don't create art, then people can't connect with us in a way that speaks to them, and I think that would be a really sad way to live. So as an artist and talking to artists or people who love art, I hope you're doing well. I hope that you are healthy and that you are safe, and we all hope that this is over with soon. But I hope that you create or encourage others to create. If we're in our homes and, we're looking for things to do, kids love art. As a family, you can encourage each other to do things that, it's always those things, I wish I had the time to. Well, now you might have the time to do them, and stay well. All right, bye for now.